to laugh is it's not a gift, man. It's a trust. It's a community ideal. To be able to put people in a room, it's talking about some of the most difficult of things, painful, hurtful things, but yet congeal an environment whereby people can see their own humanity, show compassion, and show mercy. Civil liberties attorney Clarence Zarrow also said when it came to humor, if you lose the power to laugh, you lose the power to think. With that, I present the End of Racism Comedy Lecture Tour Virtual Edition.
I think racism is the reason why you never ever see any black people in tanning commercials. You're laughing, but if you went to the local pharmacy, you saw a cardboard cutout of me with some suntan lotion, you'd be confused. It's a killing. They don't tell you this. It affects everybody. Guess what? Racism affects white people too. But they don't tell you. That's why I'm here. Work with me here. Black people got Black History Month. I'm Muslim. Muslims have Ramadan. Latinos have Latino Month. Asians have. What do my white brothers and sisters have? Nothing. You don't have a Caucasian Awareness Month or Black Appreciation Day or a White Day or a Moscow or Southern or Russian Month or Hopefully you'll be up a pale clothes. Nothing. Put out your right hand. Extend 5 fingers. I call this the fives. It's about thinking about language. Freedom. I believe there's always 5 letters that let us know just how close we are. 5 letters. Think outside the box. Here we go. You can count on them. 5 letters. I believe it all exists. EXIST. Here on Earth, 5 letters by virtue of the fact we're all here in nature with man. Therefore, it doesn't matter whether you're black 5 letters, white 5 letters, Asian 5 letters, or Latino, check the O to A is still ain't true. I'm Muslim, that means I follow Islam, that's 5 letters. If you're Christian, follow Jesus. If you're Jewish, you get 4 or 5 letters too. The point of this is, as good as it sounds, it's always going to be hate. And it's 5 letters too. Because our power lies in our unity, UNITY. And a hater, you know how a hater is. Most of them are angry, some of them are upset, some of them are pissed off right now because damn it, they can't SPELL. And it's okay. Tell a hater, listen, man, if you can't spell it out, do the math. If you take 3 things away from the 5, it leaves you peace. And that peace is spelled PEACE.
I proudly present the End of Racism Comedy Lecture Tour Virtual Edition, coming to a college near you. Hey everybody, Assalamu alaikum. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Make sure that you hit the subscribe button and the notify button so you'll know when you're getting new episodes. And we just want to grow this project. I thank you in advance. Without further ado, let's get it rolling. The Shout Out Show.
Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi barakatuh, family and Preacher Miles, host of the SOS Shout Out Show. I do sincerely hope that you're having an amazing Tuesday morning or Tuesday evening, wherever you are. Just put a brand on that thing. Just make sure that it is amazing. Our topic today is going to be a little bit of a reach, if you will. I'm taking a little different direction because I'm going to actually look at something and do a little back homework. We're going to back up a little bit and see how that thing is reacting and affecting us now, if you will. So, normal course of business, brothers and sisters, anybody that's coming on the show for the first time. Number 1, thank you for coming on the show. Number 2, you are welcome and you're a part of the official Shout Out Show family. The rules are very simple. If you have some ideas, put them in the shout out. in the comment section, and we will give you a shout out. Not just myself, but the people who are, I want to say the regulars, the royalty, the stars in the building, who I will be introducing in just a moment. And if you're coming for the first time, do a small favor. Just a small favor. Click the subscribe button. Click the like button if you like it, and notifications. That way you know that the program is coming on, and you just get a little taste, a little heads up. So with that being established, I think it's important to shout out my regulars. When I say shout out to regulars, it's not like you say, hey, I got fans. No, this is a family show. I have family, so I say to shout out soldiers, but I also say to shout out family, and there's a reason for that. Because all of us have grown on this journey together, and it's almost important, very important to, I want to say, just acknowledge people's efforts. It seems some days that we just don't acknowledge effort. We acknowledge success, we acknowledge failure, but we don't really look at the process that somebody makes an effort and what that entails. It means that you're not necessarily sure you're going to get the result that you want, but you're willing to put that energy into it. And it could be good energy, bad energy, but there's energy invested in the process, whatever you're trying to do. Stars in the building. Sister Ree, how you doing? How did Juwan's moving go? You didn't let me know about that. How did you're empty nester now? He's gone. Yeah, we have Sister Sultana, consultant producer on the show. Big star in the building. Great show last Saturday. Excellent show last Saturday. Sister Aika, a dedicated sister all the way from Indonesia. We appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming. Altaf, all the way from the great north of Canada, Toronto, doing his thing on lockdown, joining us, brother. We appreciate you, man. Anytime you come to the Shout Out Show, don't worry about immigration or passport. You are home. And my main man, mind you, I haven't seen my man in a minute, but this is a very good brother, man, doing wonderful things in my home, in my home area, Washington, D.C. And mind you, yes, we do have to hook up next time I come home. And we got to talk about that political action committee, how we begin to do things for ourselves. And I'm actually glad that Manji's on the show today, because I'm going to be talking about something. And maybe Manji's in that space. But I'm going to be talking about something that has been bothering me. Okay, good. All is well. All is well. Tell Juwan I said hello. Our topic today is, what is the danger of the Stop the Steal movement? Stop the Steal movement. Now everyone knows President Trump has been trying to reverse election results. I don't know why. I don't know what kind of dope he's smoking and shooting. I don't know what kind of heroin he's sniffing. It's not going to work. I think I get a little irritated just by the fact that he's taking up public time, if you will, to run this thing. Hey, my little brother's on the show. What's going on, JT? That's right, brother. Salesforce Unite. But I wanted to talk about this thing called the Stop the Steal movement, which is this whole idea, if you will. I guess Sultana got some love. It's this whole idea that somehow the election process is rigged, or an election is being stolen, if the person who's saying it doesn't get their way. If Donald Trump says it first, then somehow, someplace, it means that the election has been stolen from him. He is preemptively saying that democracy doesn't work. And if you say democracy does, then you're somehow a co-conspirator against him becoming the president. It's a bad argument. Clearly, it's a bad argument. Now, these are arguments that are made really when people are really, really drunk at barbecues. However, in thinking about this, there was something I came across, and I'm going to put it up in the idea of talking about this idea, why the Stop the Steal movement is important. It is actually part of a conversation I had with Sister Sultana in regards to some of the things we were talking about on social media. I came across this about Stop the Steal. Read this, everybody. I would not consider this a grassroots movement by any means, said Ben Docker, the CEO of America. a digital investigations consultancy. Stop the Steal is a highly coordinated partisan. What he's saying is that the Stop the Steal movement, brothers and sisters, did not start in the 2020 election. It goes all the way back to 2016. Literally, the Stop the Steal movement was designed to address Republican candidates in the primaries that were running against Trump in 2016. And what this says is, this is a demon that eats out of both sides of his mouth. This was a project that was launched so that Donald Trump could get the upper hand, if you will, on Republican primaries, and in Republican primaries in 2016, not 2020, 2016, to basically eliminate the Bushes, the Cruzes, the Kasich, all these people got moved to the side. And why is that important? Because none of them at this point in time have acknowledged that this was an apparatus that was used against them. And when they are watching it unfurl, they're silent. They have nothing to say. They have nothing to say. They have total plausible denial, not fully acknowledging that this is the process that basically might have cost you an opportunity to be president of the United States. Bush, Kasich, Cruz, there was a little guy, Mark, I can't remember his name, little guy down in Florida. But this process was used in 2016 as a tactic to make sure that Donald Trump had a foothold, an illegal foothold, a conspiracy theory. However, it gave him a wedge to people who were disaffected, disillusioned about the election process. And the guy behind it is who? Roger Stone. A guy that was supposed to do 40 months in prison. He got a pardon. He got a pardon, but why are we still dealing with Stop the Steal? And I believe that he's still running the Stop the Steal movement. Him, O'Bannon was involved, and a plethora of other people. But let's look at the process, if you will. Stop the Steal was a preemptive strike on democracy. A preemptive strike on democracy. The last time you saw this kind of effort, this kind of action executed against anybody, it was African Americans going back at least 100 years. Now, my point is, we are sitting here in 2020 watching this whole thing unfurl. Watching the Giuliani with his bad dye jobs, going around doing super spreader events, coughing on people, taking selfies with elderly, with absolutely no conscience. And I bring up Giuliani because he's the exact person that you need to perpetuate this type of action. I told you, and some of you have told me, I don't want to say I told you, but some of you have told me that this thing is so far beyond being the president. This thing is so far beyond leadership. This is a power grab going back to 2016. And I'm saying this because when does it stop? In 2016, they realized that we could call it what you want to, but they could pimp out Facebook and they could pimp out Twitter. They knew exactly what they were doing in 2016. Remember, they had lost consecutive elections with Barack Obama, who was one of the first people to bring technology to the fold in terms of voter registration, in terms of raising finances and funds. And they took his machine and they ran with it. And at this point in time, they got the wrong guy to run for president in 2016, but they couldn't stop it. If you flip forward now in 2020, we have the same thing going on in regards to the use of social media. Now, I said something a while about possibly jumping off social media. I was in my feelings, but that's the way I felt at the time. And I still feel that way because it's not you, brothers and sisters. I worry about being on, doing shows, and somehow somebody with bad intentions could hurt any of us. Me, you, I do worry about that. But I know there are security protections and protocols, so I will leave that alone. But of course, my main impetus was I want to protect people who support me. Maybe they'll come along and there'll be some other apparatus. But my point is, think about all the people who've been affected by things like the Stop the Steal movement who have no idea that they've been basically usurped. Their logic has been tainted, tilted, manipulated. My biggest fear now that when Donald Trump leaves is that he pulls that whole machine, the heart of the Stop the Steal, the heart of the Trump supporters, and he takes the heart out and he leaves these people almost like zombies. Because that's what happened when you lean a certain way and you don't execute the logic to just ask basic questions. I literally worry about Trump supporters because when he's gone, what is the rally cry? You're now left in a situation, in a scenario whereby logic surrounds you. And that logic that surrounds you, it doesn't have the necessity of having lies, the necessity of having deception, the necessity of fear. These are people who are logically asking you questions. Just think about the post office. The post office was pimped out in the hopes of winning an election. The post office was pimped out. People tried every trick they could do to make sure people didn't get to the polls, particularly people who are going to vote against Donald Trump. And even in that aspect, the guy still got over 70-some million votes. But what does that say? Not so much about the democratic process, but the brainwashing process. Development, and Munji, you can jump in here, the development of political zombies. The development of political zombies. People who are walking dead. And we're going to have a nation of walking dead people, not only politically, but spiritually. Because to go back what we talked about on Sunday, to produce that kind of person, you have to devalue them, and then you have to give the perception that they have value. Let me say that again. To produce what you see here, these Trump supporters, these Stop the Steal movement people, these young men that take rifles and go into Kenosha, Wisconsin, these police officers that lean on a man's neck, I want you to understand that that is not a mistake. That is an environmental setup. That is an environmental curation to make sure that people, even when you see it, you only see it for a moment. And when you only see it for a moment and you stop and you go, whatever happened to so-and-so, they've mastered this aspect that they have separated your logic from your spirit from your logic. And it's dastardly, it is mean-spirited, but it's a reality. There are people who openly tell you to ban Muslims, people who call Africans animals, call black people criminals, call Mexicans racist, and be the first one to church in the front of the pew like God is okay with it. That Ben Decker that I talk about, CEO of Memedica, Digital Investigations Consultancy. You know, the interesting thing was they did their homework. And all of this information was out. Stop the Steal was not something that started in 2020. They have been doing A/B testing, not just A/B testing for a slogan that was sticky, but A/B testing for the people that would react to these slogans. For the people who for lack of a better word, would be most vulnerable. Literally be most vulnerable. When I talked about social media a while back, the thing about social media and that documentary, The Social Dilemma, whatever that, I can't remember the name of it. My mind's bad sometimes. But they said that the artificial intelligence that was involved in social media was meant to accentuate the strong aspects of human character, the strong aspects. But at some point in time, it's become the flip, the converse. It now exploits the weakest part of human character. And that is what we respond to. When I say respond to it, we are building cultures that responds to weak, I want to say weak character. I'm trying to be nice. But at what point in time, when does weak character become rewarded? Or better yet, when does weak character become mainstream? We've seen it with this presidency. And I, with a whole lot of people, we had to watch it. When I say we had to watch it, I mean that we had to sit here and eat it. And the reason we had to sit and eat it because we've been indoctrinated that when an election is held, there's a winner and there's a loser. And if your guy wins, alhamdulillah. If your guy loses, alhamdulillah. It's this feigned sense of fairness that people have played on for the last 4 years. When I say the feigned sense, they fake fairness. They fake fairness. They want you to believe, brothers and sisters, that the process that you went through, that you fought through, that you knew was rotten, that you knew was inappropriate and unfair, by virtue of the fact that you went through it anyway, you somehow condone the system. You somehow condone the activity of the system. That's why I get all upset about the legal process, because the legal process has a lot of people that just don't know the law. The problem is you have a coagulation of people who don't know the law. So it's easy to misinterpret the law. It's easy to assess or interpret the law. And then the sad part is the amount of speed they could do it, it takes years to get a bad law off the books. Now I'm a concepts guy. Many of you are concept people. If we were to talk about this whole thing of to stop the steal movement, I was reading that, they really got that from the progressives. The people who said, count your vote and things like that. And so it was almost, I want to say, countercultural. If they're saying go out and vote, we're going to go out and say but then you're stealing it. Do you know or understand the racial intent behind saying steal the vote? And what was interesting was, even though you had these situations and scenarios, brothers and sisters, where, of course, the courts turned it over, but you still had to go through a very, very public process where people question your integrity and your character as a voter. As a person carrying out what is clearly your constitutional right, you now have people that question it. And what we don't do is question the people that question it. You're looking at a well-oiled machine. 2024 will be interesting because you're going to have to see who is going to step up out of the Republican Party and say, no, this is the way we do it, and we're basing it on character. And you're also going to have to look at the Democratic Party, because there's also a danger where the Democratic Party goes, well, they're not playing fair. Let's not us play fair. And then you get that whole situation where democracy doesn't count anyway. Stealing votes, accusatory behavior. It's all a ploy. One of my sayings I used to always like was about the devil. It's about the devil. Not that I'm not a devil guy, but every once in a while somebody says something about the devil and it makes sense. And Stop the Steal is really, it's really a devil movement. But let me tell you why. They say about the devil that the devil promises you everything and gives you nothing. Let me say it again. The devil promises you everything and gives you nothing. Stop the Steal is the same thing. Stop the Steal is like an election al-Qaeda. Years ago, I talked to a guy at MI5 over in London. And he told me what al-Qaeda was. He said, basically preach, al-Qaeda is like 400 guys with a really good camera. Stop the Steal is the same thing. It's Roger Stone, it's O'Bannon, and a couple other people, Alex Jones, who come up with these conspiracy theories, and they craft them in a way and they present them to the most mentally, spiritually, and emotionally suspect or weak people that they can find. Now, they'll mix in some people that look like they have common sense, but they're paid actors, if you will. But the masses of people who show up, who somehow internalize all this stuff, are the ones we really need to be worried about. Because the one thing you don't want to say about Trump, but the one thing that's true, is that he had control. He had control over these people. You know, one bad of him having to tell them anything. He said, jump, they say how high. But the emphasis that I don't want us to overlook was that the entire GOP was caught off guard. The GOP didn't realize at some point in time that these people, whether you like them or not, they got to vote. And for all of us that remember back in history, the Tea Party was a splinter group from the GOP. This is Tea Party 2. They are more removed from education. They're more removed from explanation. And in this era, if you will, because I used to sit here, and we all do this, you know, I used to sit here going, well, what kind of news are these people watching? What kind of information are they getting? Like, this is the story. Then I spent about 4 hours watching Fox one day. I don't worry, I did it on an empty stomach, and I survived. But I sat there and I said, if this is the most trusted news source of these people, the most trusted news source of these people, that and Rush Limbaugh, who take an escapist attitude to what reality is, to present for a fee a particular reality to these people and continue to feed them, is one of the most dangerous things in the world. You know, I try to think broadly, and I think of the guy over in, I think, Norway, who killed, 30-some Muslim people. And he brought up a manifesto. He mentioned a manifesto in court, and the manifesto was essentially what the Stop the Steal movement was. A lot of conspiracies, a lot of accusations, a lot of violence. So as we wrap up, I want us to really think about how we reverse the Stop the Steal. How is it in 2020 we can come up with something the way they came up with something in 2016 to shift the narrative, to make sure that that's not available to them? I don't know if we could do it, but I think I would bring it out. When are we going to get preemptive? This is a movie coming out. It's directed by Spike Lee. It has the guy who's in who played Nat Turner. He was in The Great Debaters. I can't remember his name. But you need to see that trailer. And what it is, and it's going to be controversial. I'm telling you that right now. There's a guy who's riding along with his son. He gets pulled over by the cops. The cop doesn't really know why. You could say it's harassment, but he's a black man who has his son in the next seat. And they shoot his son for no reason at all. He shows him his hands. He shows him his phone. And the father watches the process. Sounds familiar. Watches the process where the people who killed his son get off. The grand jury finds no evidence. They don't have strong enough evidence to charge the officers. And then the flip happens. The flip out, which is the father goes and looks for justice against the police. It's going to be a messy movie. I'm going to tell you that right now. And I'm going to tell you why. Because it's people taking arms and protecting themselves, and not just protecting themselves, but now we're out for justice. Sound familiar? Nate Parker, thank you. I can't remember the name of the movie. It's something Skin. Tomorrow I'll try and play the trailer, inshallah. It's going to be a controversial movie because, in some regards, it mirrors the tenor and the temperament of where we're living right now. So I'll talk about that tomorrow. Maybe I'll hit up Spike Lee on Instagram. Maybe he'll hit me back. But I'm looking at this movie, and it comes at quite a crisis time, and I think we should all begin to look at how we become preemptive against people and things who are hurting us. Yes, American Skin. That is the name of the movie. Look up the trailer for American Skin. I just saw it today. If anybody else saw it, you can chime in. We can talk about it tomorrow. But I'm going to leave it at that. I appreciate everybody coming on. And before we go, I'm going to emphasize again, let's start thinking about how we can preemptively protect ourselves, protect our communities, protect our children and loved ones from the Stop the Steal type movement activity that's been out there. We're smart, but in the current climate, we're just way too reactive. We need to be preemptive. And it's not a bad thing to guess. Even if you guess wrong, guess early. All right, brothers and sisters, you've been great. I am going to get out of here. I have a class tonight, so forgive me, but I appreciate you sitting through and walking through this logic with me, and I hope that we can talk about it moving into the rest of the week. Take care of yourselves. God bless. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm Preacher Moss.
Hey everybody, this is your brother Preacher Moss. Listen, I hope that you enjoyed your ShOUT Show experience.